Hi, everyone. Welcome to the AMEC webinar on PR measurement in the AI age. I'm actually really excited about today's webinar. It's an amazing, interesting topic on the top of mind for many, and I have a wonderful group of panelists here today. We're going to do a quick introduction for everyone and then dive into the questions. Um, and so I'm going to start off with Mary Elizabeth. Mary Elizabeth, welcome today, and so happy you're here to join us. Please tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Great. Yeah, happy to be here. Looking forward to this discussion. Hello, everyone. I am Mary Elizabeth Germaine. I am the Chief Data and Strategy Officer with Ketchum. So spend a lot of time looking at things from a data perspective, AI perspective, and how we can really be using technology to do our jobs more efficiently and balance, the use of AI as a tool in combination with human-led intelligence to counsel clients from a data integration perspective.
Great. Thank you. James.
Hi, I'm James Crawford. I'm the managing director and founder of PR Agency One. I set the business up 15 years ago with a focus on measurement and evaluation to measure the impacts of PR and the campaigns that we do. And I've been a board director at AMEC now for, gonna get it wrong, feels like maybe 7 or 8 years. So I've been beating the drum for a while.
Excellent. And Ben Levine.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ben Levine. So I had the True Global Intelligence practice for Fleishman Hillard in UK and EMEA. So we are focused on all things data and intelligence, and of course, kind of thinking about the role of technology and AI and how that powers the work we do, particularly audience insight and evaluation space. So very excited to be here with my colleagues, like James, who've been involved in AMEC for a very long time as a board member for several years and back on the board this year. So excited to be here with you all.
Very excellent. And my name's Rob Key. I'm the founder and CEO of Conversion. We provide AI-powered natural language processing and predictive analytics based on this data. Which brings us to how we kind of got here today. I'm aging myself a little bit, but to the group and to all of you out there, this feels a lot to me like a date in 2003, where back in that time, with the emergence of search engine optimization, there was the old saying that the Google results are the front page of Google is the front page to your website. It's where reputations were driven. And in many cases, people never went beyond kind of the first page. So it's like, how do you dominate and how do you make sure that you had a positive brand reputation within the first page? We fast forward now, however many years that is. And, back then we talked a little bit about this concept of search engine reputation management, right? That goes back, some of you may remember, all the way back then. Fast forward today, and we're in this entirely new, interesting world of LLMs, foundational LLMs, and generative AI, where we're not talking about social communication content. We're not talking about media content. We're not talking about voice of customer content. We're talking about a synthesis of all of that data powered by algorithms and that are generating perspectives about your brand. And the movement is really incredible. Just a few statistics that we pulled out here. According to brand auditors, that today 40% of users are now preferring LLMs over traditional search engines for complex queries. And I see that for myself. I use it very, very often. And today while ChatGPT is about 24 million searches back in January 2025, and Gemini is only 1.5 million, but there's an expectation that about 30% of searches over the next couple of years are going to be driven through LLMs. And the challenge of that is, an entirely new technology that brands and organizations need to deal with that are going to be highly impactful in terms of brand reputation. So I think we're at an inflection point as an industry. And so having this crew together, let's start to talk a little bit about this. And James, I'm going to start off with you. Like, what are the implications of this going forward?
I think the implications of this are huge. We are at an inflection point. If we look back in recent time anyway, you could go back to the early 2000s and the rise of social media to see what kind of impact that had on PR. You could look at SEO. You've mentioned search again. That's had a transformative impact on how we measure PR too. And I think AI optimization PR for AI is going to be on the lips of many CMOs as we go forward, and it's down to us to work out how we measure it and what kind of impacts it has. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've discussed having this initial webinar today is not to come up with all the solutions today, because why would we have them all, but to have the conversation and over the course of the next few weeks and months try and make some clearer recommendations for the industry as to how to take them forward, how we measure the impacts of AI in PR. But yeah, go back to the question. I think it's going to be hugely transformational. And if you just remember when people first started talking about SEO, it was very much a fringe activity, and that was a multi-billion-dollar industry. Social media grew really quickly, but in the early stages, it was always farmed out to some expert in the corner of the room who was wheeling to pitches. And I think we're at that kind of nascent stage at the moment, and it's really exciting to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, excellent. Ben Levine, how do you see it over from your perspective?
Yeah, I think there's a few kind of really core implications. I mean, speaking from a, data measurement perspective in the world of PR, I think this change really puts the gauntlet down, so to speak, or underlines the importance of quality of content, right? So we're thinking about, in the context of search and how Gen AI search results are prioritized, a lot of that comes down to authenticity, expertise, clarity of the post, right? So all of these, I guess, I wouldn't even call them hygiene factors, but reputational factors. So that means for us as an industry, I think it really means from PR comms, is it our moment perhaps to really kind of own, I guess, this new AI world in some respect, right? Because a lot of the work that, our agency, Mary Elizabeth's agency, Matt's agency, like our job is to get high quality content out there for our clients. So that I think is kind of the big one. And then I guess that's content creation, and that leads on to the measurement piece, right? Maybe for us, what I hope it means is that it's more of a focus on the quality of and the impact that we're having with our work, and kind of less of how much volume in terms of trying to get out there and get reach. It's got to be reach that is high quality, and it's got to be focused and aligned to audience. So those are all like very exciting and things I know from an AMEC perspective we've been preaching for a long time, and this just like solidifies that for us in a lot of ways.
Great. That's great. Matt?
Yeah, I reflect what Ben and James have said. Really, like, this brings us as agencies to a point with clients where we can start to kind of help elevate their brand authority and brand voice, because I think previously, PR, we've tried to get their voice out there. I think with AI answer engines, it's going to be about where you show up, how you show up, and that consistency of voice across channels, and to ensure that you're showing up in those kind of short answers that these answer engines are feeding, because we're kind of moving towards that different element of search. So we've gone from that traditional search engine, which is all around kind of lexical search, around keyword specific results, more towards that semantic search basis, which is about who's searching about what and why. And as agencies, we're kind of at that point where we can really start to position our clients as kind of those brands, those authoritative brands, to kind of meet the needs of their audience. I think obviously that brings challenges, like James was saying about SEO and search. When they came out, it was all around how can we start to understand the impact of that? How can we see visibility? I think we're there with AI answer engines now. They're kind of a black box for a lot of our clients. So at the moment, it's about us trying to guide them and show them kind of how they're showing up, where they're showing up, and try to help them with our kind of expertise and consultancy.
Matt, I mean, I think you touch on a particular topic that we're going to come back to later on with everyone, but there are a lot of shadows of SEO kind of within this particular world. And if you go back to the world of SEO and Google, the Google rank authority, links were an important part of establishing trust, right? Because they were votes that this is an important type of content that I think is worthy. So therefore, an analogy that we don't have really with these LLMs at this point, right? So there's this trust deficit that's often discussed, and I think we'll get back to that of, how do we establish trust and how do we build trust within this kind of environment, because it's a challenge. Mary Elizabeth, over to
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
I want to make 2 points, answering the first question and then just building on where Matt was just going. I think if you think about us as an industry from a PR and comms perspective, the heart of what we do is storytell to drive relevance for our clients in the marketplace, right? Across a number of different stakeholders. And ensuring that as these new technologies emerge and are kind of ever present in what we're doing and how different stakeholders engage with content, this concept of storytelling presents such a huge opportunity for our clients. And it's no longer just slamming audiences with a straight marketing message that's all about product features, but it is the semantics of the emotion that you're going to pull on. And that's where these LLMs and the data there can inform that emotional hook, right? Like, you don't buy a bottle of water because it's water and it's wet. Like, what makes you buy a Poland Spring over an Aquafina if you're in the US? There's some more emotional connection that has to happen for brands to stay relevant today. And I think the idea of the semantics element of what LLMs deliver just opens up such opportunity for PR and communications in a way that was never present before. And that spans kind of every single channel, right? Like, what is that storytelling from an influencer and content creator perspective? What's the storytelling that the brand's telling? And how are these different channels working together to tell a holistic story?
No, excellent. Thank you.
And then I just want to make a point on your second point, because I do think it's the use of Chat GPT and everything for search. And Rob, you're right. Like, the SEO, it was the links, and that's, how you showed up on the Google page. But think of yourself. Well, I will speak for myself. I now search on Google. I am of the age group that still uses Google to run my searches. But I'm getting you, I'm getting generative search results at the top of my Google page. And I'm taking that at face value. There are links below that are informing what's coming back, but I'm not actually even clicking. I'm just assuming that what Google's telling me is correct. So this idea of like accurate information, authentic information, I think poses a little bit of a risk in the grand scheme of things.
I think it's a really good point, Mary Elizabeth. And I want to also point out just a quick story is that even in the Google search results, the challenges were there. I remember early on, we worked with one of the largest chemical companies in the world, and then their number 2 listing was a fake version of their website, but that a BBC reporter clicked on and invited one of the people to be on the BBC. And during that conference, they took responsibility for everything in Bhopal, and they were going to spend out billions of dollars of payments, and their stock went crashing. And so there was no truth even in the Google search environment. And now fast forward to today, and there's even less visibility. There's an opaqueness of where this data is coming from. So I think your point of what's real and what's misinformation and disinformation, I think, is on steroids here. But I want to get back to where do you begin, right? So we know this is going to be transformative. Like, what's the first step that everyone on this webinar should be thinking about today to start to take some action in this particular area? And Matt, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, just to build off Mary Elizabeth's point, that kind of the AI search engines almost acting as recommendation engines are kind of changing the kind of way that we approach things for brands. So I'd say one of the ways that we can start to do is just by doing a few easy, quick prompts from the mindset of what your target audience is within a ChatGPT, within Gemini, within kind of Google, and see if your clients are showing up in those short answers. And it's not just about like the number of times you show up, it's how you show up. Are your messages pulling through? How are you represented? Are you misrepresented, to your point, Rob? And then from a PR standpoint, it's where are you showing up? Or if you're not showing up, like what are the links and the websites that it's calling on? Because to James's point, it's a lot of earned media, it's a lot of owned media, and we can start to learn about the content that's being pulled in there. So I think from that perspective, as a starting point, you can start to not necessarily benchmark, but just start to prompt and see that brand visibility, and then build from there, audit for your clients and help provide them with recommendations off the bat.
Right. Sounds good. Mary Elizabeth, do you want to pick up on that as well?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm getting messages that it's hard for everybody to hear me. Is it any clearer right now?
I hear you. I hear you pretty well.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to that. It comes back to the authenticity that you want to deliver to the marketplace, and really understanding where audiences are getting information. I think that there's the emergence of search and using LLMs and GPTs. There's also social search. So it's understanding your different audiences. Like if you talk to a lot of Gen Zs today, when the whole threat of TikTok going away in the US, my son, who is Gen Z, and his friends are like, well, that's where we're getting inspiration for our dorm rooms in college. Like they're using it as a full-on search engine. So it's thinking about all of these channels differently and the different audiences that are playing in each channel, and then how you need to tweak your channel specific strategies to ensure that you're getting the story out there and you're controlling that message, right? You're not letting somebody else control that message for you, and you're putting your brand at the forefront of what people are looking for.
That's excellent. James?
I just had a point really, just going back to the AI summaries in Google search. You know, Google search is being hugely disrupted at the moment, not just in terms of will people use Google search or an LLM, but in terms of what kind of traffic it's actually sending to our clients. So, you know, as Mary Elizabeth mentioned, you know, it used to be a big list of blue a blue text recommendation engine. Now with the summaries, we're seeing lots of clients having more impressions than ever before in Google Search Console, but the click-through rates are just dropping through the floor. And that's because of those AI summaries. So, you know, we're seeing disruption to how clients measure their brand from a Google Analytics point of view, through, you know, things like share of search. There's been a share of search. What does that really mean now? Is it the same thing? I've not really looked into it, but we're starting to see some really interesting disruption in the space. And then going back to what Mary Elizabeth was saying about, you know, channel strategy, I think because of the way large language models use tokenization, I think that's the right word, to translate text into tokens, it's very difficult to predict what it's doing. It's very opaque. Whereas all we can do at the moment really is we know that earned media, social media, owned content is driving it, and we've got to try and work out which titles from your earned media are more influential for search. We get little clues to that maybe through deep research, but obviously it's a completely different, you know, tool to the LLMs and things. But so at the moment we're punching in the dark a little bit. We've got to take clients on a journey. But I do think another tipping point for me is going to be when companies like like ChatGPT opens up some sort of advertising planner. I can't imagine they're going to get to a point where they don't drop advertising on this sort of stuff. And you know, if the Google Keyword Planner was your sort of doorway into the insights of Google, I can't believe that ChatGPT won't offer the same to its paid clients, and being able to get that data is going to be really crucial.
No, really good point. And Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I guess not a whole lot to add on what my colleague has said. I mean, one thing that I think struck me that that we've seen that's become apparent is, you know, is just the the way in which that, I guess, zero-click kind of summary is being fed, right? So I think the point was made that people are kind of primed to take that as, you know, as gold, right? When you search and you kind of get your little summary there. Google's been kind of doing that for a while, where they were giving that top of the page results, and zero-click has been around for quite some time. There was an interesting piece of work done by Richard Sanger, who has a blog focused on SEO, where it kind of looking at these changes in terms of what was feeding that AI summary. And I think his research found that there's this shift from only just a couple months ago, 5% of those top page results were returned in the summary. Now that's about 46%, according to his research, in terms of what's in that AI summary. So to me, and in talking to some of the data partners we work with about, like, well, what do we do in this world of SEO and Gen AI, there's still a lot of the same guidance around how to rank highly in search versus AI around the quality, kind of what I was saying before around quality of content, the expertise, the authority, the format, the quality of your website, all of these things. So it is an interesting world and space, as kind of James is alluding to, from an ad planner perspective, from, I guess, having enough data around the audience. But I think it just goes back to, if I'm a PR professional, the storytelling point that Mary Elizabeth made, that comes down to really understanding your audiences, understanding their behaviors on channels, and then really thinking through, like, what are the answers and information that they're looking for, right? I think, ChatGPT versus Google, these are all our prompts to the world to answer questions that we have as individuals. So the more we can be focused on understanding what those are and delivering then the content in the way that our audiences need it to be delivered, and then thinking about how does that play into how we are discoverable wherever we are, and imbues the reputation and the brand, kind of positioning that we want. I mean, that's, to me, feels like the right path forward.
Yeah. Sounds great. And since we are on an AMEC webinar, and measurement is at the core of this, you can't manage what you can't measure, right? Like, how does this impact, and I'm just throwing this out to the group in general, how does this impact the PESO framework? How do we see it? What's the impact and implications?
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because we don't know what is impacting, specifically what's impacting the results of these large language models, but we do know that it's PESO. So in a way, measuring outputs in the PESO model kind of became more important than they were beforehand, because we need to track where our clients are appearing and make recommendations to our clients if they are interested in AI as an objective, to try and optimize that the results that we're getting in the PESO model.
I mean, it's an interesting point, because in some ways, these models have become intermediaries between, they're collecting, and for those of you, many of you probably understand how these models work. They're pulling as much of their publicly available and private data as possible, and they're using transformers or topic discovery engines to predict what's the next word, right? So what's the common word? And the output is sometimes phenomenal, but sometimes the algorithms itself aren't exactly that complex, but the output can look that way. But many of these platforms are different from each other, right? So Claude is a little bit more about a reasoning algorithm. Perplexity is different than that, and so and with some of them you can actually submit content for corrections, and some do certificates, citations, and other things as well. So there's a little bit of a different animal. But the study that was that Sanger talked about, I thought was really interesting, because it does show about content, third-party content, first-party content, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what's feeding it. And we do see now domain-specific LLMs emerging too for specific domains, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that. So it isn't, I guess, to the team, it's not a homogeneous landscape currently, is it? Each of the platforms have their own little nuance. And as we talk about, what can you do to influence perceptions, we need to keep that in mind, that there are kind of different approaches to different platforms, going forward.
Yeah,
So
I would say, Rob, like, the discovery by platform in this new world order is more critical than it ever was. before, right? Like understanding the nuances of what a perplexity is going to return versus a chat GPT, how like, and looking across all of those and then thinking of it from a peso perspective, then what becomes that holistic content strategy in terms of the content that you're pushing out through all of those channels, right? Like how are each of the different LLMs tying back to your website? And what does that mean from a website content perspective? You may not be getting the direct to website traffic anymore, but that website, if the language and everything there is right, it will be discoverable back in one of those models. So it's like, it's the chain effect and how do you thread from one to another and then create. And I think Ben, I think you said it's to ensure that all of your content, no matter what the channel, is discoverable in the models that people are going to most often and understanding those differences by audience.
Great. And to that point, I think it's really what's discovering intent. What are people searching for? That's the black box that I think maybe James or Matt, you had mentioned, or you know, and you can still use search data to understand what are the things of which people are intending to find for you, even if that you can transpose that into LLMs. Who wants to follow up on that of what can you be doing right now to influence these results? Maybe I'll go over to hey Matt, maybe over to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you know the group has already mentioned about content optimization across channels for discoverability, and I think just touching upon what you were just saying about the nuances between LLMs, you know, each LLM has a different hallucination rate. So if we take a step back in terms of measurement, we're thinking about like quality of measuring that output. You need to be aware of, you know, which LLM you're using, the hallucination rate, the answer rate, and so on and so forth. Because as kind of measurement experts on this panel, we want to be sharing that trusted information back to our clients. So we want to ensure that when we talk to our clients about where they show up and how they're showing up, we can do it in a kind of accurate and, to your point earlier, Rob, in a trusted way, which I think we're still all figuring out with this new landscape of LLMs and this new kind of adoption rate where not only users are going there just to kind of do additional searches, it's about preference of search, to your point. So I think when we think about content optimization for that discoverability, it's that. And I think, you know, I'm probably hitting on the same points that Mary Elizabeth and Ben were talking about in terms of kind of consistency of message across channel. I think previously, if you had inconsistent message, maybe it would be an inconvenience to your audience, but maybe it wouldn't be felt so much. In this new kind of age of AI answer engines, if you've got inconsistent messaging, it's going to really impact your discoverability and how you show up in your brand authority in this age. So I think being able to kind of build an authentic voice, and I think Mary Elizabeth said it perfectly earlier about storytelling, helping our clients tell their story in an authoritative and authentic way is going to be key for moving forwards.
James, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think it is about creating the right kind of content and being consistent with it. I've just wanted to say that I did a piece of research using ChatGPT, largely focusing on deep research purely because it gives you the sources that it's used, and did 100 queries to try and make some sort of sense of where it's going. And, you know, obviously Earn was right up there, but so there were some really surprising ones in the weeds, like things, you know, Reddit suddenly becomes a little bit more important to your channel strategy than it was before. Your website, so many people gave up on blogging, so many people gave up on having just updating the news section of their website. Well, you know, a lot of the citations that I've seen are pulling information directly from the source. You know, when you ask it for company information, it will go to the source. So there are lots of interesting points of nuance where it's not necessarily just about storytelling, although, you know, I'm big on storytelling. It's also about technically making sure you're ticking off a few of the boxes of things that may not have been right up there on the that high up on the to-do list. Wikipedia comes up time and time again. I know there's rules and regulations within the PRCA about editing Wikipedia pages because it's naughty naughty. But I think there'll be a lot of people trying to manipulate Wikipedia. And I think that's probably why Elon Musk has even talked about trying to buy it, and he's slated the founder of Wikipedia recently because it is very authoritative in the LLMs, and that then cites in media, so it becomes a self-fulfilling thing. So there are, when you get into the weeds of it, I think some really interesting sources that we've got to look at as PR people.
Yeah, just to quickly chime on what you said, James, I think the point about Reddit should be really underscored. I mean, I saw news that there's a deal between Gemini and Reddit, right, to train Gemini, and so Google is getting deep on what appears on Reddit, place to go, look for expertise, ask questions, etc. So I think that underscores that. And then just even thinking more broadly about some use cases we've had recently, like doing research, things like in Indeed or Glassdoor or some of these other places that I think from a reputation perspective, audience perspective, we've been aware of, but with a deep research and others, it's kind of opening up access to these platforms in a more democratized way, right? So there's even this broader reputational question of a wider ecosystem of audiences we have to be aware of. And I guess I don't want to say manage, but to a certain degree, just being aware of it and understanding that is going to play a role now when people are searching for your brand, depending on those products and questions.
Yeah.
So not only do we have to understand the nuances from each of the individual technology solutions, but then you need to understand the nuances across more channels than we've ever thought of before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this becomes really fascinating because what we're really talking about at the end of the day is communications influencing the training data of which these algorithms and these LLMs then feed upon, right? So you all are, anybody who's influencing content strategy, search strategy, et cetera, what you're really doing is producing training data. And the accuracy, the model is only going to be as accurate as the underlying training data. And so that is in a completely different way to think about these things. And in the world of SEO, there was a lot of time spent trying to reverse engineer the different algorithms. I mean, there were entire cottage industries built upon trying to reverse engineer Google's algorithm to understand the ranking factors. And many times there are 150 or more ranking factors. Just within this conversation here, we're starting to see the same thing, aren't we, James? You're kind of reverse engineering a little bit, but each of these platforms do train data a little bit differently. Some focus on just breadth, some do it on quality, some have just experts, some are others. Is that the next big thing now? Are we going to see the same type of cottage industry reverse engineering these algorithms and sharing that with that's not search marketers anymore, it's AI marketers, right?
Yeah.
To help influence these results. That's the great battlefield?
I think so. Although it's a lot more opaque than Google ever was, and Google tried to make it really bloody opaque. So I mean, SEMrush has recently launched a new tool. I think I got access to it last week. I've not paid my $99 to try it out yet, but I'm assuming it just runs a series of queries, a bit like what Matt was alluding to. But I think that still is a little bit of a basic way of doing it. But they've had a go at it. I want to have a play around with it and see how it works. But I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to figure out how it works, piecing it all together, and there's going to be a lot of testing. I mean, there already is quite a lot of testing, but because the queries are so much longer naturally in a large language model, and they're almost like multiple long tail search terms, it makes it really hard to do that cottage industry kind of test and iterate because you're trying to ask. You need to create a structure to ask questions, and nobody asks questions. We all ask questions in different ways. So it does make it really hard to do. But I think we're going to see that cottage industry. We're going to see tools like SEMrush try and figure it out. But I think we're also going to see a lot of tools really struggle. Like already ChatGPT, deep research. You can do a brand watch light report. So. Yeah, that whole, speaking to your point, that cottage industry is definitely on the table. Just how it all manifests is going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, and
And
we're actually as an agency looking at that, Rob. It's really interesting, James, what you were saying about trying to replicate that long tail search. I think this is where the AI agents come into play. So like agentic AI, you can start to give the agents a persona, the persona of your target audience. And this is what we're looking at as an agency right now. How can we build a tool for our clients to try to replicate those searches that your target audience are doing with that context around either a branded keyword or a non-branded keyword? So we can almost reverse engineer that. So prompting at scale, maybe 1,000 prompts, trying to understand the keywords that underpin those answers, where they show up, and then building a strategy around that. But as James said, we know it's not an exact science, but it can start to give clues about, the sources that are influencing the training data, the sources that are influencing when you turn on the web browsing functionality. But I think this plays into that kind of whole importance of AI agents, which we know a lot of clients are looking at investing in. And, Gartner said it was like the big thing for 2025. And I think that's how I'm sure that's how SEMrush are looking to kind of do their AI analysis as well.
I think it's having those open dialogues with the clients. If all of this is test and learn and pilot, right? Like let's bring clients something new, be forthcoming in those recommendations to bring, new solutions forward and say it may not work, but let's just test it and see what happens, because, clients want to explore as much as they possibly can too. And I think if we wait, then agencies fall behind. We have to be the ones that are driving the change in the marketplace and bringing those test and learn opportunities forward.
right. So based on that, I mean, do we all see an expanded kind of responsibility for agencies and corporate comms? Because if you think about the influence of these, right, within large organizations, there's often a lot of hands that could be in this pie, right? There could be chief data officers, right? Because of what's your data strategy, what's your data quality, strategy. There may be an AI committee, in terms of how do we impact that. So do we see corporate comms playing a lead role in this and kind of starting to unify some of these functions internally? Or how do we see that playing out a little bit? I don't know if anyone wants to take that one.
I think that that's the ideal state.
Yeah.
I think it's going to vary on client by client basis and like where clients are in their own maturity from a data usage perspective, a tech AI usage perspective. I mean, you have some clients who are still much more traditional in how they think of PR and earned media. And then you have some who are so far ahead of the pack that I think it's just us as practitioners ensuring that we understand where clients are from that maturity spectrum and making sure that we have solutions that can kind of help move individual clients along without necessarily bringing the most intense and complicated solution everywhere. But that's where I think it's those open dialogues with clients for testing and learning, because I think that you have some who don't know it, don't understand it, and it's scary. And how can we be the voice? But I do think it depends on client. I mean, we have some clients that are incredibly siloed, that they do have a chief data officer that sits over here and a chief technology officer, and then comms sits over here, and nobody's necessarily even talking to one another.
Right. That's a really interesting point. I mean, James, where are we on this maturity cycle? Where are organizations and brands at this point in time? Are we 2003 in SEO? Are we further along? I mean, is it just different by brand? Like what kind of reactions do you get as when you're talking to your clients about these type of issues?
It's super nascent, isn't it? I think it's really early stages. If you hark back to when social media emerged and there was all those conferences, who owns social media, and the PR people were saying, we own social media, and the digital marketing people, we own social media, and the advertising agencies try to own social media, and I'm not sure who actually does own it now. But I think we're all going to have to play a role in in managing it, and because it's so driven, at least at the moment, by peso outputs. I'd say we've got more than just a bit of skin in the game. We should be taking a lead on this subject and not let the advertising agencies muscle in, which they will do, especially when there's an ad planner behind it and all the rest of it, is to be able to, which eventually will come out. I'm pretty sure is my little guess. So yeah, right at the beginning, exciting times, Rob.
So James, we should you encourage everyone on this call to start to build into their vocabulary things like RAG or retrieval augmentation generation, fine tuning, the elements where you are influencing and fine tuning these models to have the most optimal output. Is that falls into the mandate of corporate comms, maybe today based on what you were saying.
Well, I'm not the most technical person around the table today, so I try to avoid the jargon where possible and to try to use plain English. But if I was more on the CTO side of things, if I was developing a tool, I would definitely be wanting to have those types of conversations. But yeah, I just think we've got to go into it with our eyes wide open, join the webinars, go to the seminars, read the white papers. It's one of those things to obsess over at 5 a.m. that I seem to do when I wake up and have a quick scan of all the latest updates on it. And I think that's not going to go away for the next few years at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Who wants to jump in on that? Ben? Yeah. Do you think it's an expanded mandate to incorporate all of these?
I do. And if James is the least technical in the call, I'm probably the least technical in the call. No, I mean, it's been interesting, right? Like, I think what I've observed, like over the last 12 months from a client side, is it's certainly I've seen a shift from, I think, a lot of skepticism, nervousness, not sure what to do, and now they're looking more to us as agencies, not even just specifically from Measurement Insights perspective, but just more broadly about how can we help them understand the use cases and applications of AI within corporate communications. And so we're hearing more from, I think, clients wanting that counsel on what does it mean to be a modern comms professional in the age of AI. So I think we do have a responsibility, and I think just echo what James said about being educated, going to the various webinars, reading what we can, experimenting where we can, and trying to help our clients elevate their own knowledge base and comfort level with what does it mean for the practice. And then I think it is incredibly interesting now that I'm sure all of our agencies have been given the opportunity to be experimenting a lot more, right, over the last 12 months to do everything from custom GPTs to agents, etc. It is exciting, right? Because we are, I think, in 2025 on the cusp of unlocking new things that we can bring to our clients, that it's not just efficiency, but I think it's, the speed and delivery of insight. It's starting to understand, predictive scenarios and that type of planning and measurement. So yeah, it is exciting times. I don't pretend to know where it's all going to go and kind of along for the ride, so to speak. But I think it is, the more you can, I hate to use the term, lean in and experiment with it and understand the use cases that we talked about, the differences in platforms and the possibilities. Yeah, I think there's a lot more to come in 2025 in very quick order.
That's excellent. Matt, something you want to add?
Yeah, I would just echo the point that a lot of our clients, if I had this conversation 12 months ago, were saying to me, is this something that I need to focus on today? It's not really something I want to invest in right now because I don't see the immediate benefits. Now they're kind of like, my client teams are bringing me into these calls because it's a hot topic and our clients are asking questions like, oh, how can we leverage this across our programs? Like, what do I need to know about this? So I'm seeing a shift from the conversations that I'm having with clients, just from that mindset of, oh, this is kind of like a future problem. Like, this is a something that I need to be aware of, but not today, to now I need to actually start to pay attention to this because it's affecting maybe the brand reputation, or I know that kind of their executives are asking, hey, what are you doing with AI in the business? So just that shift I've noticed over the last 3-4 months in the conversations. And I think as an agency, I think we were touching upon, and we were all discussing, differences between LLMs and different platforms, how they might represent information in different ways. Our clients are feeling that maybe confusion, maybe they're not so technical, like James said, maybe they wouldn't understand what RAG was. So I think if we can come to them and help them navigate this and help them kind of adopt some of these technologies, and not just for an efficiency benefit, but to enable them to be more effective in the strategies, I think that's where we really kind of play a part as an agency.
Right. So let's talk about it's an elephant in the room, and it's not related to just this, but it manifests in this, but it's about AI in general, and that's the trust deficit, right? How do we engender trust in this technology? Because hallucinations are well documented. There's often incomplete information. There could be disinformation. There can be misinformation. These could be manipulated. Mary Elizabeth, I want to talk about you. What are some of these risks that we're looking at, and what are the things we should be thinking about as we move forward, over the next, 12 to 18 months in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a couple of things that we're doing just even from like a pure assessment, discovery, data collection, and kind of point of view development perspective. It's a lot more rigor and not just taking everything simply at face value, to make sure that we clearly understand the information that's being fed in, where it is being found, whether or not it's actually true. And we have a lot of clients who, frankly, are managing from as Ben was talking about, from a reputation perspective, that mis and disinformation. I think it's, what's critical to that is making sure that we have the experts on the team who can really sort through and understand kind of the makeup of the different models to identify where issues arise. I think the other thing that we're doing, from a custom GPT perspective, is feeding in the information that we can then use to make decisions again. So we're almost, in some cases, creating a controlled environment where it is information that we've gathered, vetted, know is correct, to then drive towards a strategic output. So that's how we're balancing it right now. But I think it's huge. I think as the models become better and stronger, hopefully you begin to see some of the drop off of the hallucinations. But you have to go in. I think it's just eyes wide open and knowing that all of that exists: misinformation, disinformation, hallucinations, and that you're not just, probably as I do from a Google search perspective, taking things simply at face value.
Sounds good. And Matt, how do we mitigate risk and build trust in this system going forward?
I'd echo what Mary Elizabeth was saying. Just try to take the information, audit it, put guardrails around how we're using it for clients. Probably try to create those controlled environments where we can start to analyze the information and build strategies off correct information. I think for clients, it's going to be a challenging environment to navigate in some ways, because I think we said at the top of the webinar, some clients might feel like they're losing control over their message, and as agencies and as consultants, we don't ever want our clients to feel like that. So it's about helping them navigate maybe that feeling of loss of control, and helping them to again kind of get their message out there correctly in this kind of sea of potential hallucinations and mis and disinformation. But yeah, I don't know if that was the answer, but
oh no,
yeah,
that's excellent. I mean, the message is you're not helpless, and and as Mary Elizabeth has said elsewhere too, it's like if you're not defining yourself, you're being defined by somebody else, right? So you really don't have an choice but to engage, right? James, how do we mitigate risk and build trust in the system going forward from your perspective? What do we need to do?
Yeah, so I mean, it is down to the guardrails on how the large language models get their information.
Right.
I mean, I mentioned earlier in the call around, Elon Musk has a huge beef with Wikipedia at the moment because a lot of the large language models are pulling information from Wikipedia. Wikipedia has a percentage of, I'm not quite sure what it is, of accuracy. It's fairly high accuracy, but at some point people like Elon Musk or a bad actor, let's think hypothetically, could get his hands on that website, and then that information becomes less robust and safe. So there's that kind of the source information point
There
when
you
it
go.
comes to it, but also from the point of view of hallucinations, I don't know what the answer is other than checking it. I
Yeah.
did wonder if we need to have a bit like we've got a spell checker in Word, we need a hallucination checker
Yeah.
to check the work that's being put out.
Yeah. No,
Couple
I
of
think those are excellent points, and I'm going to advocate a little bit. And I'm going to give some credit to AMEC here. Many of you may know that AMEC has joined the Global Data Quality Initiative with a focus on leading a work stream on setting standards. I'm sorry, principles and benchmarks and improving the accuracy of unstructured data. The metadata associated with it. Things like sentiment, but also source and many other things. And the reason is it's absolutely essential, not just for our day-to-day consumption, but because this data is being used as training data for these LLMs. So it's an extremely important initiative. And for those who are AMEC members, I really encourage you to reach out if you're interested in participating. And for those who are not AMEC members and you're interested in this, hopefully you consider joining and getting involved in this initiative too, because getting the data on the underlying data right and pristine is essential to help mitigate um, the hallucinations in this data. But I'd like to take a step further just with these LLMs and advocate also trusted AI standards, which with Barcelona principles and other things too, that we've talked about as well, which is concepts of transparency. For example, with these models, they do have confidence. When they answer a question, there are confidence scores associated with these types of algorithms. So, simply to say I'm 70% confident in the response versus, I personally think would be interesting. Observability is how accurate are their models and publish them, right? So that we have transparency in the system, because only through transparency do we build trust. And I hope to see, and you see some places are using more and more citations and source data and other things as well. So I do think there are going to be steps in that direction, but I would advocate for corporate comms to make sure that the data that's being fed and being published is as accurate and as possible. So anyhow, on that particular case, all right, a couple points. Just advice going forward. I don't know if we have time for any questions here, or if we're taking any questions or not. But a couple of just last points. We've covered a lot here from measurement to taking action, roles and responsibilities, building trust, etc. What's your advice for, where do we see this in a couple of years? Like, right, where are we? And what are a couple just final points of advice you would give to everyone as we end this today? And I'm going to start with you, James. I'm going to work it backwards. So I'm going to start with you, and I'll go to Mary Elizabeth, and then we'll let the other panelists kind of finalize all this.
Sure. Where's it going? I mean, I think Matt talks about life becoming more agentic. I think that's how we say it. Is it Manos or Manus? I can't remember the name of the tool that's just recently come on my radar, which is an AI agent that goes off and does loads of amazing things for you. So for me, like the next year is going to be all about being more agentic and trying to get on top of those tools and just going into everything with my eyes wide open and trying to underpin everything with those AMET principles to make sure we stay true to the cause.
Great, excellent.
Yeah, I would just add, I think it's a matter of for all of us, again, as practitioners in the space, to not rest on our laurels. I mean, if we think about how quickly AI and these LLMs have been adopted, like what is next? Like, how are we getting out there and educating ourselves so we can be the ones who are staying ahead of the trends from a client perspective? And I think that, you know, we all have to demonstrate certain level of curiosity around this space to make sure that we are, you know, constantly learning, have an appetite for something new, not being afraid to try something. And if it fails, it fails, but at least you fail fast and you move on. I think it's, you know, a mindset shift in order to be successful in this area that we all have to adopt.
Right. Absolutely. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I smiled when you said, where are we going to be in 2 years? Because I think if we did this webinar again in 2 months, we'd probably all come at it with a different answer. Maybe that's something that this group can come back together in a few months and do this again to discuss. But yeah, I think, you know, to Mary Elizabeth's point, I think we should be encouraging experimentation and in a kind of controlled environment. And I think when we talk about client use cases and encouraging people to use these tools, it's always with that human kind of in the loop type mentality. So never take the information at face value. Yeah. Have that human oversight, make sure that the information is accurate, relevant, so on and so forth. So we're not just using these tools just to make efficiency gains and like throw something in and throw something straight out to our clients. We still need to take care over the information. But yeah, I think it's moving so quickly that, you know, if we had this conversation again in 2 months' time, we'll be talking about different tools, like James was talking about, different AI agents and everything.
Really good point. And certainly it feels like the early days of search where we have our Ask Jeeves and our Alta Vista and all our other flavors, which will shake out over time. And certainly what I would help encourage is that because some of these algorithms are so black box, that the communications industry really encourages and demands and helps and along with our clients greater transparency on how these algorithms are working, right? You know, you have from the open source of Meta to really very closed and proprietary environments, and you know, given the impact this is going to have on society and brands and others, you know, clear and open transparency and responsible AI clearly needs to be a really critical part of that. And I think we all have a role to play in doing so and ensuring the data they use is accurate and others. I mean, to me, the communications industry has a massive role here of what's going to come, and it's going to be pretty exciting. So I think with that, we are able to wrap up this. Really great panel. I mean, this is great to talk to you all. And yeah, it would be great to do this again in a couple of months. And the pace of change is so quick. I could, you know, maybe you can just use a synthetic version of me to moderate. You don't really need me maybe at that point. That would be fine. But I really enjoyed it. So thanks to everyone. And we hope to hear more. I mean, I'd encourage you all to reach out directly to the panelists if you'd like, or to AMEC directly to learn more about the Data Quality Initiative and other things here. As it was said at the very beginning, this is the first step in a conversation. It's not the last, and there's many chapters to come. So thanks, everybody. All right.
Thank you.